Hey, and welcome. I'm Dave, and you are listening to Life Is Peachy, a nostalgia-fueled podcast that allows me to sit here and waffle on about the bands and albums that became the soundtrack to my life.
I torched all the evidence to prove you're you, okay? So, wow, looks like you're gonna be in here for the next 100 years.
Growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, and while we're at it, sharing a few memories from Her Name Is Murder Productions. Welcome to episode 12. The Life Is Peachy Podcast has hit a milestone. Together, today, we celebrate 1 year around the sun.
I went to that tanning place your wife suggested. Was that place the Sun?
And what has this trip entailed? Where have we gone? What have we done?
Knock, knock.
The debut episode kicked things off with one of the bands that started my journey into heavy music. With Derek Green, we looked back on Sepultura's Underdog album.
I'm truly honoured to introduce my friend and vocalist for Sepultura, Derek Green. Hello, Governor. Are you alright?
Hello there, love. I'm doing quite alright here.
Fancy a cup of tea?
Absolutely.
Following this, Life Is Peachy celebrated 20 years of Carpe Diem, Will Haven's crushing third album, seizing the day with the band's riffmaster, Jeff Irwin.
Thanks so much, Jeff, for taking the time and joining me on the Life Is Peachy podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I can't thank the fans and people like you and people that actually care about us because, you know, we just create music to just create music and have fun with it, but to reach people is like, that's the ultimate high, you know, to connect with people and unify people and have something in common with people. It's an amazing feeling, you know, and it's probably my favorite thing in the world is being able to like connect with people and be on the same vibe with them musically. Music is just vibrations, you know, and it's like when you can connect vibrations from me to somebody else, that's what humanity is all about, you know, and I love that, and I wish the whole world was like that. But yeah, thank you to the fans for just like being a part of my life and being part of our lives. Life would not be the same without any of you. So I thank you for listening and enjoying us and having a place in your heart for us, man. It means a lot.
It is really scary being that vulnerable and that open and that real, but it's the thing. It's like when you are, like that's when you can create something that has that magic that people connect to and that can help them. Like if they're going through something shit, but there's a song that they connect to the lyrics and it makes them feel less alone, or it makes them feel like they're not a freak and it helps them. Like that's when music is at its most powerful. Like that's what has always drawn me to music, and alternative music and heavy music in particular is just that feeling. Like when you're feeling at your most shit and you feel hopeless, music always makes it better. Like listening to music, no matter how shit you're feeling, even if you just need to cry your eyes out and you listen to music that makes you do that, it still helps. Like it still helps you heal.
Episode 3 called in one of my closest friends, Emmy Mack, from Australia's Red Hook, bringing a modern band into the nu metal fold. Winding back the clock once again to reflect on Lynn Straight's legacy with Mikey Doling of Snot, as he shared some stories which, myself included, a lot of fans hadn't heard before.
Man, I don't want to keep having shitty stories, man, because again, absence a bad story. I love that song too, and that song led up to Sonny Mayo leaving Snot. Ross Robinson fucking pulled Sonny aside and stole him out of Snot. Straight fucking up. He took Sonny and said, dude, I got another band I'm putting together, Amen, with Casey Chaos. And if you'd like to leave Snot, you could join Amen. I'll produce the record. I'll take care of you. And dude, at the end of the session, when we were listening back to Absent, all in a great mood, Sonny said, hey, I got to have a talk with you guys. Pulled us into a side room of the studio with fucking Ross Robinson standing right next to him and quit Snot right there on the spot. and I was fucking blown away. I wasn't expecting it. I was floored. And Ross Robinson sat there and like refereed the whole thing and said, hey guys, you know, sometimes things happen. He basically plucked them right out of our band. Those are my feelings about Ross Robinson. Everybody loves that guy except me, because what he did to stop.
It was around this time I really started to let go and rid myself of the insecurities holding me back. I wanted this podcast to really stand on its own and become an immersive audio documentary experience and deliver these stories the best way I could, in the best way I knew how. And it felt like another rung on the Life Is Peachy ladder to interview Wes Geer, reflecting on Head Planet Earth's treacherous album Blackout, a release which never really got its day, and a moment in the band's career not talked about before in the detail in which he did.
We went and spoke to, you know, the rock star, the people who put Aerosmith back together, these rock star kind of therapist guys, which, by the way, back then there was a new thing, and we couldn't fix the relationship. Could I have done some stuff better? Yeah, totally. Did I make some mistakes? Yeah, totally. Could Jared have totally handled it in a better way that I think could have kept us going as a band? Yeah. But you're asking about the state of the band. Well, that drove the whole writing process for this record, and one reason why I really don't like it. Because, and I told you I was going to give you the dirt, a lot of the record, in my opinion, I haven't even really spoke to Jared since this record, since I left the band. But it's painfully obvious that he wrote it about me, and I think unfairly characterizing me in many ways.
Back-to-back Aussie episodes blasted through our headphones with Alpha Wolf drummer Mitch Fogarty.
You know, it's all just like a time and place kind of thing. You could definitely go and do something that you think will make you feel better, but there was a lot of days where I drove the extra 25 minutes or whatever to go and play drums, and I just sat there and was like, I feel like shit. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything, so I'm going to go home. And it's like just kind of puts you off the thing that you love more, that you attempted it and you still fail. The days where I feel like I have energy to go and do that, I will go and rip it for like 3 and 4 hours. Play through the set, be like, yeah, I'm killing it. You know, you have one of those days where you're like, shit, I'm on top of my game. And then the next day you go and try to do the same thing and it's just upside down. Feels like you're playing something you've never played before. It's just a day by day thing. But the thing is, like when you're on tour, it's less day by day, you know. It's more like you're immersed in something you love. When you're on tour, you seem to be on top of the world, but you know, you come back and it's back to square one again. Every band's feeling this, I guess, after a year of COVID. We're all been on square one for a year.
And Ocean Grove frontman Dale Tanner exploring exciting new metal-infused releases with some of Australia's frontrunners.
When I realised that what I was doing on stage and how I was presenting myself in combination with being able to use my voice, I think that's a massive part of how I've been able to engage with people and really capture their attention for a moment, to let them in to my world and show them the inner workings of me and what I'm about. And I just thought, perfect. If I can connect to people on that wavelength, that's a powerful thing, because I'm reminding each of them that they have that capacity too, and that they are these spiritual beings that have unlimited potential. If only they just expressed that innate spirit within them, that fire, that passion, and showed it to the world, just unconditionally and without apology, that it can have these ripple effects, widespread reverberations of positive energy, because at its essence, it's what it kind of means to be like a soul trapped in a fleshy human body. If that part of us is not being engaged, then it's pretty easy to become kind of zombie-like, right? And so for me, the moment I started to get that affirmation that, all right, this is starting to affect people in a really positive way, and they're walking away from shows hopefully feeling like they're invincible and that they can do it too. Because I knew what that feeling was like, looking at someone, whether it be a musician or otherwise, putting their heart and soul into something. It's a way of communicating that I think we've forgotten the importance of It's primitive. It's in our DNA, and we can sense that as much as we can sense someone who is being a phony.
Are you gonna vanish into thin air again?
I thought I'd use your front door.
I found myself continuously humbled by the interviews and guest experiences I was receiving. In many ways, I really couldn't believe it, and as a result, I started to believe a little bit more in myself. So I thought, fuck it, let's really go for it.
I had an interview today, and the interview that I did was actually really cool. It was for a podcast, a new podcast called Life Is Peachy. It's a new metal based podcast. I hate that word, new metal, but whatever. It's a new metal based podcast, and this dude's giant Burning Red fan. He's been bugging me like for a couple of months now, I want to say. And I was like, all right. I was like, finally, the anniversary for the Burning Red is coming up in a couple of weeks. 22nd anniversary. This guy's been like, I really love the record. Let me get you on my podcast and talk about it. And it ended up being a really good podcast. And as we were doing it, it was just really good. And I think if you're a fan of that record, you're really going to love it. Yeah, it was really good stuff, man. And we went really deep. We went really deep into that record. And some interesting stuff that I don't know if people know. And I think you'll get a kick out of it because it's some really, really cool backstory stuff. And he was very knowledgeable and went really good.
Exploring Machine Head's infamous The Burning Red with none other than Rob Flynn himself was surreal. Ironically enough, like the album we were celebrating, new listeners brought in through this episode quickly pulled apart the format and presentation, and I realized my podcast wasn't for everyone. And after a few restless nights and bouts of self-doubt, I decided to stick to what felt right and continue making these episodes the way I wanted to and in a way which brought me joy.
Got any idea what got you out of that slump? You know, Curly, I just stopped caring, man.
Yeah, Life Is Peachy isn't for everyone. It was never meant to be, and that's okay. These are made for you, listening right now.
I've had better.
And it was this overall vibe of the podcast that brought in my next guest, Chad Benakos, his first interview since leaving Head Planet Earth in 2002 to look back on the band's sophomore Broke.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait to hear what you come up with, and I'll be there for you, dude. I'll try to help you. I think you have a cool voice, and the way you feel about the things that you're passionate about, that's how I am too. I've been hit up to do tons of podcasts, dude. I just don't do them. I don't know why. I'm way more happy being mysterious. I'm not a talker. I don't want to promote anything. I just want to do cool stuff, and that's it. For someone like you, I just felt connected to you in that way. I'm really happy that you paid attention to it too. Yeah, man, I appreciate you.
And I'm still lost for words on that. And from here, it was time to prepare for more 20th anniversary celebrations with Rob Arnold and Chimera's Roadrunner Records debut, Pass Out of Existence.
Well, hey, man, I'm finally glad we were able to make it happen. Yeah. It was nice doing this, man, and I appreciate your love, especially that you're seeking guys like me out to talk to about these albums from the past and stuff. So I'm certainly going to check out some more of your stuff, and I recommend other people do too, because you're doing a good service to the music and metal community here.
And just when I thought I was all partied out, it was time to celebrate 20 years of Oracle with the one and only Morgan Lander of Canada's Kitty. Another absolute dream come true.
This was really great, and sometimes it's really nice to, reflect on these things, and it's hard to believe that 20 years on, people are still loving and cherishing Oracle. I'm so happy that you asked me to do this. I'm sure we'll do it again sometime.
I love this job. This recap isn't to boast, but to celebrate with you and make obvious what we're building together. Hopefully a unique, immersive experience dedicated to giving you something special, something different, and most importantly, an audio documentary podcast that you can count on. If you've enjoyed these episodes and followed the podcast, then this is definitely as much your party as it is mine. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the messages, your comments, your reviews, and word of mouth. This was born out of a dark time, and it really makes me happy to see it grow with you as we celebrate music and its connection together. Your love for this music, your energy and nostalgia, it's in the DNA of this podcast too. So let's keep it going. Let's build this community together.
Okay, you can come.
And so how about we keep the party going to round off Life Is Peachy's first official year in the podcast universe. Let's kick it off with the band that started it all for me, Australia's Sunk Loto. This isn't the first time I've mentioned Sunk Loto, and it won't be the last. All I can say is that when they released their debut EP, Society Anxiety, in 1999, it felt very akin to my drive-in theatre experience only a couple of years earlier.
You are listening to an excerpt from episode 1.
This all happened to be the very same year I'd witnessed a shooting star fizzle out in front of the drive-in theatre screen while watching two trains collide and explode in John Woo's Broken Arrow.
Ain't it cool?
It was right there and then, at the drive-in in my parents' car, looking up and watching this streak of light, this speck of rock and dust, sparkle out in front of the theatre screen full of explosions, that I knew I wanted to do exactly that. Make action movies.
And even if it sounds ridiculous, as much as Broken Arrow opened the gates towards a life in film, so too did Sunk Loto, with my dream to be in a band and tour the world forever. And even though this life didn't pan out, I did start that band, and for many years it was enough. Writing and performing music with some of my best mates, playing house parties, skate parks, venues, festivals, hanging with friends. And yeah, I just would love to give a shout out to those mates from that band, Fake, Geordie, Heathy, and Tucker. Some of the best times in my life. And though Fake didn't end up touring the world, we didn't even leave the state of Queensland, but that passion to tour would transform itself to living a lot of my life out on the road, documenting bands on tour, in the studio, and on set making music videos with my production house. Her name is Murder Productions.
Yeah, David is incredible, and he's added so much to the visuals of letting people really see the true simple tour of what's really going on with us. And I love working with Dave. I'm looking forward to doing more with him in the future, and his work is phenomenal. You know, it just really touches a lot of people, and I've heard such amazing feedback from everything that we've worked on with him.
But this dream of music, this dream to be in a band, it all started because of four guys from the Gold Coast. Guitarist Luke McDonald, bassist Sean Van Gennip, vocalist Jason Brown, and his brother Dane on drums. Signing a record deal with Sony Music at the average age of 16, they presented to me the realization that anything is possible. If they can do it, so can I. It was completely inspiring, and they were the living proof. Their achievement gave me the confidence to believe in myself that little bit more and take that leap of faith, putting myself in front of an audience with a microphone in hand. At a time when music was meaning everything to me and I desperately searched for a way to express and voice myself, Sunk Loto gave me a platform to dream, discover, and grow. That's probably why they are more than a band. It's bigger than that for me. And I know that this isn't special only to myself. Sunk Loto resonate deeply with many, particularly in Australia, and ever since they played their final show in 2007, we all keep hoping that one day they will return and show us that the dream isn't dead.
I've tracked him through 11 major cities on 4 continents and never come close, not once.
No matter how much time moves on and what other things are left behind, bands like Sunk Loto represent this time in life that was like no other. That wonderful era of the 90s and early 2000s. the Life Is Peachy podcast was born because of this. The nostalgia, the inspiration and passion that came from and still comes from listening to this music, their music, and the realization that those feelings will always be there.
Wow. That was a first for me too.
So now let's look back on Society Anxiety, released a year after Korn's Follow the Leader, in between Deftones' Around the Fur and White Pony, and the same year as Limp Bizkit's Significant Other. It's 1999, and my absolute pleasure to welcome Luke McDonald, guitarist of Australian royalty Sunk Loto, to the podcast. Thank you so much for your time and energy and joining today.
You're welcome, man. You're very welcome. Thank you for that awesome introduction. I actually had a really crazy dream last night.
Man, it's been a full-on month or more in the dreaming department, for myself anyway. It's like a bloody movie every night.
It's strange too, man, because of like the context of what we're doing today, but I had a dream last night and it was really vivid that I was interviewing David Bowie. It was just really strange because he was very untalkative. The dream was just super long. It was really weird. You know, usually your dreams just kind of flash from one scene to the next. Yeah. Seemed like the dream went on and on for hours, and I was trying to get information out of him about his writing process or whatever, and at times he wouldn't even talk to me. I was like, hello, David, are you still there? And in the end, he just stopped responding, so I hung up the phone. And anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you because it was kind of strange considering that we're doing an interview or whatever today, and his name's David.
Yes, exactly. I was just about to say that part tripped me out when you said, David, are you there?
No pressure, of course. Freaking uncanny.
Dreams, time machines. Yeah, we're of course here to look back on Sunk Loto's debut EP, Society Anxiety, released, if you can believe it, 22 years ago. But before we do that, let's go back a little further. Looking back, would you say there was a reason or a definitive moment where you knew you wanted to play guitar? And what influences, you know, whether they be music-wise, band-wise, or just life in general, what influences went into those early days of playing guitar, songwriting, and wanting to start a band?
Wow. At about 7 years old, I was given an acoustic guitar, and a couple of years later, my dad actually gave me his electric guitar when I was about 10 years old. That really influenced me a lot to start playing because it was a lot easier to play. It was like an old Ibanez guitar that he bought in the 80s. There was just a lot of things like my dad, watching him play music, and was always playing guitar and playing music in the house. I was very lucky because I came from a family that had a lot of music in the house. My dad originally wanted to be like a musician. He played in bands, and that's really where everything kind of started for me because he was always playing a lot of different rock and roll, everything from like Chuck Berry to the Beatles to the Rolling Stones, The Who, Electric Light Orchestra, just a lot of awesome music. And at the time there was a lot of film as well. Dad would play a lot of videotape of like Jimi Hendrix playing at Woodstock, Joe Cocker, his performance, and he sang A Little Help From My Friends by the Beatles. That was really amazing. If you haven't seen that, try and find that.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Will you stand up and walk down with me?
There was always a lot of music. That was really my introduction. The influence of just all the music that he would play in the house. Every weekend it was going to the video store, renting videos. It was the greatest. Binge watching movies, and I was the youngest in the family. I had 3 elder sisters, and they had really awesome taste in music too, because in the 90s there was just so much amazing music, and I think they had picked up on my father's taste and my mother's taste of 50s, 60s and 70s stuff like the Doors and Beatles and everything in that era as well. They were also creative people too. They had all these amazing influences, you know, Red Hot Chili Peppers and Faith No More, tons of bands that they listened to like Nirvana. And so I got turned on to the Red Hot Chili Peppers by my sister, and I was really obsessed with Blood Sugar Sex Magic. And I had a friend who had the Red Hot Chili Peppers Blood Sugar Sex Magic tablature book. One side of it was guitar, one side of it was bass, and he could play all these Red Hot Chili Pepper songs, and I was just blown away. To me, that was just like the most amazing thing. It was like watching a magician do a magic trick, and I would just ask him over and over again as we were waiting to catch the train to school, please play it one more time, one more time. That would motivate me to beg him. I'd beg him, please just show me how to play that guitar song. Show me how to play that chord. I could not believe he could play these Red Hot Chili Pepper songs. Josh, his name was, and we didn't even go to the same school. We just met at like the train station, and then he got on the train and I would just beg him to play Fellowship Slinky in B major or whatever. Those things, you know, family members and friends, as well as obviously bands and things like that, but they were the ones that really influenced me, you know. God put those people in my life and put me in that position where I could flourish.
Come with me if you want to live.
I think one of the main things is just having a real keen interest in something really helps you to propel through those agonizing moments where you're just trying to pluck one string or one note, and it's the most difficult thing you've ever done in your life, and you're thinking, how on earth am I ever going to be able to play Come As You Are on my guitar? You know, like, there's just no way I'm ever going to be able to do this. But because you're just so obsessed with the song, you saw your friend play it and you're just so blown away that they can do that. Those moments were really the things that encouraged me and spurred me on as a young player.
Yeah, so how did this transition then from learning and covering songs to writing your own music and the idea of starting up a band?
After school, I used to go to this music store on the Gold Coast. It was called Gold Coast Music, and it was in Southport.
Dude, my nana lived in Southport.
You're kidding me. It was right near Australia Fair. Yeah. So at the time I was living with my old man on the Gold Coast, and he was working for a law practice. His office just happened to be right next to Gold Coast Music. I could literally just cross the road and I was at Gold Coast Music. So, you know, he'd set me up in this room and say, do your homework, and I'd spend about 5 minutes in there, and then I would go down the lift and sneakily go over to Gold Coast Music and just look at all the guitars. And from time to time I would ask if I could play a guitar. One day I was in there, this gentleman came up to me, and his name's Miles Matheson. He was the original bass player for Messiah, because I was like playing some guitar solo, some like Pantera guitar solo.
No stairway. Denied.
He was like, oh wow, you're a good guitarist, man, and I'm in a band and we're looking for a guitar player, and would you be interested? He said, why don't you come upstairs and meet the drummer? I said, okay. I said, what kind of band is it? And he's like, oh, it's a death metal band. And I was really frightened because Miles was quite mature for his age. He was only about 15 years old, but he was about 6 foot and he already had a beard and long hair and stuff. He said, do you want to come upstairs? The drummer's having a drum lesson. It's a death metal band. I thought I was going to be meeting some really scary dude with long hair and a beard and look at me and hate me or something. And so we went upstairs and Dane was getting a drum lesson. So I'm expecting to meet this big crazy looking metalhead death metal drummer. And I walk upstairs and he says, this is Dane. And Dane looked about 8 years old or something. I think about 12, because I was about 14. But, you know, when you're that young and baby faced like Dane is.
I felt like destroying something beautiful.
And Miles gave me his phone number and said, you know, you want to come and have a jam with us on Saturday? Of course, I said yes, and was really excited. And so we went to this industrial area on the Gold Coast and we had a jam and we played a few covers. We were all influenced by Pantera, Sepultura. They asked me to join the band. We decided to start rehearsing every weekend for 2 hours. I remember on the third rehearsal, so it was like the third week we'd been together, Jason mentioned that we were going to enter this competition called High School Rock. There's me, Dane, Jason, and Miles. At this point, we didn't even have a name, but Jason had started to write some music as well. I think he already had some songs, so we would play some of his originals too. It was in 1997, and we had to come up with a name, so we decided to call the band Messiah. The first 3 songs were Jason's songs, and then, of course, we would all add our little flavour or whatever. And, you know, I was just happy to be playing. I didn't care where we were playing. The first gig we did, I remember I was really frightened about playing, really nervous, really scared. And there was probably about 100 people there, if that. But we'd had some friends and family members come, and I remember when I got on stage, I was so nervous I couldn't even look at the crowd. But when I finally looked up and I saw all my friends and my family members in the crowd and I saw them smiling at me, that's when I felt like, okay, this is cool, you know, and I felt really relaxed and comfortable. Because I could see that they were excited and enjoying it. It made me really happy, and then I felt completely loose and just like, yeah, okay, I'm going to try and give them a good show. Just really go off. And once the bands had played, they announced who would go on to the semi-finals, and we got in. We, at the time, had like the cheapest guitars, cheapest little amps, you know, so when we would rehearse, we could hardly get our amps loud enough to go over Dane's drums. When you went to this festival, they literally had Marshall stacks, they had professional drum kit, and...
Yeah, and so you were like, damn, we sound good.
yeah, they've got, you know, big lighting show and literally guitar techs and everything, you know. I'm like, wow, I actually feel like a rock star or something. This is wild.
Get ready for a surprise.
We got through the semi-finals, and then the actual finals were held at Festival Hall in Brisbane.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, I actually went to see you perform there in 2001 as, well, when you were sunk Loto.
Oh, well, there you go, yeah.
You guys were the main support for, this is really cool, Linkin Park at Festival Hall in Brisbane for the Hybrid Theory Australian tour. Yeah, it's a shame that venue isn't there anymore. It was beautiful, man. And I remember
it was an amazing venue.
Same week that I saw you guys with Linkin Park, Pantera were also playing Festival Hall, and it was during the Reinventing the Steel era. And I had never seen Pantera before, but I thought, they'll be back again, for sure, guaranteed, definitely. And I had to make a choice because I could only afford one concert. So I decided to see Linkin Park because also you guys were playing, and I was thinking, yeah, it was likely that Linkin Park would never come to Australia again. It was more of a one-off because perhaps they'd be a one-album wonder or something.
So the actual final was held there, and the whole thing was sold out. There was about 5,000 people there or so.
Well, not too shabby, man, if I may say, for your first run of shows.
Yeah, I know. This is like 3 or 4 weeks after we'd been together. I just remember we played our show and then went and met up with my friends. And, you know, I'd never won anything in my life, so I did not think for 1 second that we were going to win or anything like that. But we're sitting there and I'm waiting to find out, like, who the best guitarist is. And they end up calling my name out. And I was like, what the hell? I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's no way. Yeah, and then we actually ended up winning that competition. That really motivated us, I think, to continue on. It was pretty exciting for a bunch of kids to have something like that happen.
So after this pretty epic beginning for the band, what were your hopes and your dreams with starting a band and wanting to pursue this particular passion?
After we won that competition, I think we thought, now we've made the big time and everything's going to go great from here on in, but it wasn't that way. Shortly after Miles, the original bass player, he quit the band and we became a 3-piece. And so we entered another competition after that and we only got through to the semi-finals. Jason took up the bass, Dane was playing drums, I was playing guitar. There wasn't much really happening for us. We would jam every once in a while and just kind of hang out as friends, and didn't know if we were going to find another bass player. But one day I was at school and they had like a music room where you could go and jam and rehearse. Sean was in there and he was playing bass with another gentleman. They were playing Red Hot Chili Peppers songs, and I'd always wanted to find a bass player who could play Red Hot Chili Peppers songs, because I'd learned a lot of their music on guitar. Like, I would play all of their albums from start to finish on guitar at home, and I could never find a bass player who could play the bass parts. And so I immediately asked Gam, I said, would you mind if I have a jam? I don't even think I introduced myself or anything. I just sat down and we just started to jam, me and Sean. Yeah, it was insane. Like, we hadn't even introduced ourselves or had a conversation. I think we'd say, like, do you know Mellow Ship's Linking B Major? And we'd be like, yep. And we'd just instantly play it. Do you know Suck My Kiss? Yep. And we'd instantly play it.
You are not you. You're me.
I was just super stoked. I could tell he was stoked. And he had like these long, cool blonde dreadlocks, and he was like older than me and stuff. So I immediately thought he was like the coolest person on earth, you know, and the greatest bass player I've ever heard in my life, which he was.
This guy walks through the raindrops.
Jason is a great bass player, but like I always just wanted him to like focus on his singing more, and I really wanted to get another bass player. So I asked Sean if he'd like to jam. I ended up getting his phone number. This is, you know, when people just had little old Nokia mobile phones, so I didn't have a mobile phone or anything. So I just literally rang him at home and said, dude, will you come and rehearse with us? That Saturday he came and jammed with us, and it was just perfect. Everything just locked in. And Sean was a big part, because between me, Jason and Dane, we were mainly influenced by a lot of what was happening at that time. I mean, the 90s were just incredible. There was so much amazing music. So that would have been around 97. So we were heavily influenced by a lot of heavy metal like Metallica, Pantera, Sepultura, Faith No More, Rage Against the Machine. These were the main things that we were listening to at that time. I'd never heard of Deftones before. I don't think Jason or Dane had heard of them. And Sean was the person that turned us on to Deftones.
And life was never the same again.
Of course. And so I remember actually Sean, he had given me the first 2 Deftones CDs. He gave me Adrenaline and Around the Fur, and he had said to me, dude, listen to these albums. And I was like, yeah, I'll listen to them. He's like, no, listen to them tonight. I was like, okay, I'll listen to them tonight. And then I'd go home and of course I would not listen to them because I was more interested in watching Seinfeld or something. So I would come back to school and he'd be like, dude, did you listen to them? And I was like, oh yeah, they're really good. And he could tell that I hadn't listened to them, because he knew that if I had have, I'd be like, dude, greatest thing ever, you know? One day we were hanging out of school. We were hanging out with some friends and about to go for a skate. He put on Around the Fur, because I'd ended up actually bringing the CDs back and giving them to him because he was asking for them back, and I never listened to them. I just came back, said I'd listen to them, and I was like, what is this? And he's like, I knew you hadn't listened to it. Frickin' lying prick, I knew you hadn't listened to it. So then I was just obsessed, of course, and everyone in the band was obsessed with Deftones.
I've always wanted to ask this. How did it happen for you? How did Sunk Loto end up signing a recording contract with Sony Music, and what was that experience like to process at such a young age?
We felt like when we won that High School Rock Awards, it was like, oh, well, we're set now. You know, we've hit the big time and everything's going to be great. But it didn't. There wasn't really much happening. And between the years of 97 and 99, we were able to like get people to come and watch us from different record companies, but they were never interested in signing us or anything like that. But, you know, we were just happy to be playing, and we had this dream and we were like brothers. Yeah. Anyway, we got offered to play the Warped Tour, and this ties into the Deftones thing. One of the gentlemen that runs that festival, his brother was interested, at the time we were still Messiah, but managing Sunk Loto. He had asked his brother to give us a time to play on the Noosa and the Gold Coast Bands Warped Tour. So we ended up just playing, not on the main stage, just on like this little caravan, the local bands and things would play on. And we were just stoked because we'd been playing cafes or like a skate park or something. And now we were actually getting to play this proper Warped Tour thing. And, a lot of the bands that were playing, we really liked because we also liked a lot of Australian music. We would rehearsing or jamming, we would rehearse and jam Friends with Rom songs, Grinspoon songs. We loved everything, man.
Dude, 90s alternative music in Australia during that period of time was at such a unique, creative apex.
Oh, it was popping. Regurgitator, Silverchair, whatever, anything.
Loading Aussie
Oh man,
mix CD.
okay, I need to do a quick Aussie jukebox. Here we go.
Were you laughed at by your friends? Or were you lost for words when everybody finally told you what they thought?
Queuing next song.
Cool. Can you hear me okay? Is the sound all right? We found out that Deftones were playing on that Warped Tour. I was completely obsessed with Deftones. I think Around the Fur is probably my favourite album of all time. Jason's dad was driving us from gig to gig in his little Falcon station wagon. We played Noosa, we played Gold Coast, we played Coffs Harbour. Deftones were actually joining the tour at Coffs Harbour. They didn't play Noosa or the Gold Coast, but they were joining from Coffs Harbour, and then it went from Coffs Harbour to Ulladulla, another Sydney gig, Melbourne. But we were finishing the tour at Coffs Harbour and going home. So we were just really satisfied that we were going to get to see Deftones at least once. And it was on the Around the Fur tour. We needed to get some bass strings. So we decided to go into town, grab some bass strings, get some McDonald's. Sean says, I'm going to go get bass strings. He comes back and says, dude, Deftones are having lunch in this Chinese restaurant. And we're like, no way, no way. He's like, yeah, they're in there. I'm like, you better not be lying, man. He's like, I'm not lying. These creepy weirdo fans go and stand outside of where they're having their Chinese food. Yeah, how terrible is this? We're like 14 or 15 years old or something, total weirdos. We're literally standing there waiting for them to come out. And Sean's like, dude, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. I'm gone. And so he takes off. So it's just me, Jason, Dane. And then after a while, Jason and Dane are like, dude, I'm gone. We can't do this. So they leave. And of course, me, the biggest weirdo in the world, I'm just like waiting. And after about an hour, Gino comes out His actual name's Camillo, and I knew that for some weird reason. And I was like, Camillo. And he like turns around, and I'm just like this tiny little dork, like this tiny little 15-year-old. And I'm like, I'm a big fan. Can you please sign my hat? He says yes. So I take off my hat, and I had this like Phoenix Suns basketball hat.
Side note, it was all about the NBA and basketball in the 90s, right?
Of course, dude. The basketball cards, you know.
The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship.
Started to shamelessly plug Messiah. I'm like, oh, we're playing on the Warped Tour and we're playing at 11. You know, if you could come check us out, that'd be amazing. If not, that's cool. And he's like, oh, see what I can do. And then I run back and I tell everyone, they're like, no way. I said, yeah, I asked him to come watch it. And we get on our caravan and we start playing. There's like 2 stoned hippies jumping around watching us play in front of the caravan. It was awesome. You know, we're really having a good time. And I look over and there's Chi and Chino standing on the side of the little caravan watching us play.
Dude.
That was amazing. They watched, you know, maybe one song or whatever, and then they went backstage. And we just happened to bump into Greg Donovan, who was tour managing Deftones. Someone must have told him that we were big fans. He said to us, hey guys, you know, I've heard you're big fans of Deftones. Would you like to meet them? And we're like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And he told us that Chino was sitting down and chilling out. Me, Jason, Dane went back and sat down, and we were trying to kind of have a conversation with Chino. It's kind of hard though when you're that young, and like I've never done very well at meeting my idols. I'm always really shy and say the wrong things and make a fool out of myself. I get starstruck and shell-shocked a bit when I meet people that I'm really a huge fan of. I think we all kind of get that way.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that Kerry Nicholson, one of the organisers of the Warped Tour, because like, you know, people would come over and talk to Chino and stuff as we're sitting there. Kerry came and Chino said to him, are these guys playing any more shows? And Kerry said, oh no, they're going home today. And Chino said, get them some more shows. We can work it out. And I was like, whoa. So he fully put Kerry Nicholson on the spot, and he did. He actually got us more shows, 2 more Sydney shows.
So cool.
Jason's dad had to drive us.
A lot of Australian bands would know that drive all too well.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore. We had to pay for accommodation and stuff, but we got to play a couple more shows. And another crazy thing that happened, when Deftones would play, they would let us come up on stage and watch them play. There was a time where this band Unwritten Law, and it's all good now, we've fully made amends and everything. Yeah, Scott, the singer from Unwritten Law, told me that I was in his way and like told me to beat it. When I was watching Deftones on stage, and I was like really scared of him, so like I ran away because I was only like a little boy. The crazy thing is, that day when Unwritten Law played, they incited a food fight. They told everyone to start a food fight. I don't think they meant it to get this out of hand, of course, but what happened is all these people started running to like food vans and stealing food, created all this chaos. And so Unwritten Law actually got kicked off the tour, and we got moved up onto the main stage.
Oh shit.
Yeah. How's that for like poetic justice?
That's crazy, dude.
And it's all good. Like Scott actually reached out to me and apologized. It was just like a bit of a misunderstanding. And to be honest, it was a bit too much for us anyway, because we ended up having to play at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the main stage, and nobody knew who we were. And it was just a bit too much, I think, for us. You know what I mean? It was a bit too much for me anyway. I was a bit embarrassed by our performance, because all these bands, you know, were watching us, Suicidal Tendencies, Deftones, everyone, all the production crew. I just felt a bit overwhelmed, to be honest.
Yeah,
but I was absolutely 100% grateful for the opportunity, huge opportunity. And a week later, Deftones came and played in Brisbane. I remember the tickets were only like $15.
$15? Man. I discovered Deftones with Change in the House of Flies, and then of course White Pony in 2000, and from that album I worked my way backwards. So I wish I had an actual time machine to go back and witness them in 1998 for $15 at the arena in Brisbane, touring around the freaking fur. Oh.
It was pretty cool because they had the all ages upstairs and the underages downstairs. We ended up getting a phone call from Greg Donovan. They already had all the support bands already organised, but they ended up giving us like a 15-minute time slot just as they opened the doors. So we got to again hang out with them, and so that was really another huge boost of confidence for the band. And obviously the association with Deftones, people seeing us play with Deftones and that sort of thing, it really boosted our popularity, in all honesty, because you're associated with a band like Deftones and obviously people are like, well, if Deftones like them, then they must be good. You know, I mean, that's just the unvarnished truth. So it really did boost our profile and just boost our confidence a lot. And so, you know, I've got a lot of gratitude and thanks to Deftones and Chino and everyone in their band for helping us, and it just means a lot to me. So I'm sorry if I was waffling on a bit.
No, not at all. I'm loving the storytelling, and I definitely know fans would be too.
Thank you.
Must have been so surreal to have one of your idols take such an invested big brother interest in your band and the music, you were creating.
It was. Because you know how they always say, oh, don't meet your heroes or whatever because you'll be disappointed. But on the other hand, when you meet an idol or somebody that you love and have a lot of adoration for, and they're just really down to earth and polite and kind and respectful and just wonderful, it just really boosts your confidence. And I think that's how it should be, because at the end of the day, man, we're all just human beings. I mean, I know that being in Loto was a blessing. There's tons of guitarists. I mean, I have friends that are far better guitarists than I am and far more talented than I am, but they just didn't get that same luck that I did to be in that music store and meet Miles. And then Miles introduced me to Dane, and Sean just happened to go to the same school that I did, and we happened to have that moment in the room.
What? We just become best friends? Yep.
You know, there is so much luck involved in these things, and timing.
The right place, the right time. When you stop to think how minutes or seconds later it could all be something different.
Around that time, that's when Korn became huge. Again, another band that we loved and listened to, Korn. You know, Sean had introduced us to Korn's first album. We were already listening to like bands that were kind of progressing with the metal thing, you know, like Sepultura, Pantera, Metallica, Rage Against the Machine, Faith No More, that sort of stuff, where they were reinventing heavy metal or hard rock or alternative. So because we'd kind of been writing songs in that vein, you know, Korn especially made it popular, if that makes sense. So once we started playing a few more shows, we had built up a set of kind of new metal songs.
It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum.
We had all these influences, and we'd kind of been working on that style of music, that kind of new metal sound for a while. We had asked our parents if they would pay for an EP. They had agreed all to like put in, so we had like a budget, $4,000 or something like that. So we started recording this EP as Messiah at this studio in Brisbane, and we got offered to play this gig. I think there was this place called Infinity, and it was on the Gold Coast. Do you remember that?
Yes, Infinity on Cavill Avenue.
Exactly. Right near Ripley's, believe it or not. I don't know if they've still got a thing there, but they had like a foam party, and we had sent the EP, the finished mixed EP that we did, to a bunch of labels. Sony had decided to come out and watch us. A lot of the bands too that we listened to, that we loved, were on Sony, especially overseas, like Incubus, I think Rage Against the Machine. At this point, we'd had people from Mushroom and other labels that come out to watch us, and they'd never sign us. We got to a point where we pretty much had submitted or surrendered to the fact that we probably weren't going to get signed.
Fuck them if they can't take a joke.
We ended up having a really good gig. There was literally like a little vocal PA that was it. The drums weren't mic'd, the amps weren't mic'd, bass wasn't mic'd. But I think at that point, man, we were pretty tight, and Jason's voice was starting to mature a lot because we were getting older. And sometimes you have gigs and you're like, oh, that wasn't any good. But this one we played and we were like, man, that was fun. You know, we weren't expecting it. We were kind of mocking it. It's like, these kids are not going to like our music. It's a freaking foam party. But they did. They really enjoyed the show and we had a really good time. And like a week later, man, they rang us and they said, okay, we're going to sign you. We're going to offer you a deal.
Wow. And so what did they offer you?
They offered us a 2-album deal with the option for a third. We obviously employed a lawyer to look at the contract and signed the contract. We got a small advance of money. It was around $30,000. Wasn't a huge amount of money, but we spent it all on music equipment. And then obviously in the actual contract, there was much larger amounts of money budgeted for film clips, albums, media, all that stuff. Naturally, if you've got a better producer, better studio, it's going to come out sounding more professional.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
The songs that are on Society Anxiety are the songs that were on the EP. There's actually one other song that didn't make Society Anxiety, but it's on the internet. It's called Cloud 9. That song is actually one of the songs that was on the EP. That's the quality of what Society Anxiety was. We knew we had something good. We had a good bass. So we said to Sony, look, we've got this EP, but we don't want to release this because we think we can do a better job if we have better production with a really good producer, really good engineer in a really good studio with a really good mixer. And they agreed to do that. And that's how we came to make Society Anxiety.
Did you ever think that maybe there's more to life than being really ridiculously good looking?
Let's talk about the EP experience. Famed producer Paul McKershaw has worked with a who's who when it comes to iconic Australian music. Pete Murray, Spider Bay, Eskimo Joe, Jimmy Barnes, The Vines, and a debut I'm sure a lot of Australian nu metal fans hold dear, Non-Comprehendus from the Test Eagles. But not really known for producing in the world of nu metal, and coming from a more eclectic and diverse genre back catalogue, this actually feels like something that worked well for Sunk Loto and their sound. You would go on to work with Paul as producer once again for the debut album Big Picture Lies.
Yeah.
What do you remember from recording Society Anxiety?
Go.
We got really lucky. Matt Lovell was the assistant engineer and he just finished working with Silverchair on Neon Ballroom. And he's a really cool guy as well. And so we actually went the same studio where Silverchair recorded Neon Ballroom. It was in Darling Harbour in Sydney, this absolutely beautiful studio. We got really spoilt. We flew to Sydney with Jason's mum. Jason and I were probably like 15. Sean was about 16 or 17. Dane was probably about 13.
And hold up, I just want to emphasize all these serendipitous moments and events that you have already played out. Winning the competition at Festival Hall in front of 5,000 people, playing Vans Warped Tour, all the Deftones stuff, recording an independent EP, and now heading to Sydney to re-record it for Sony Music with acclaimed producer Paul McKershaw. All of this is happening and you're only now turned 15.
Yeah. Exactly. It's crazy, man. I mean, we thought we were all grown up, of course, because when you're that age, you think you bloody already know everything. But as a, 38-year-old, looking back on it, it's crazy, man. And I had like a disposable camera. I've got tons of photos of us recording that EP. And just looking at the photos, it's wild because there's just like these little children. So we flew to Sydney and we were staying in a backpackers, Bondi Beach. And we had our own self-contained unit with the four of us and Jason's mum. And Sony had given us like cab fares to the studio. So we go to the studio and we had about 2 weeks. Sony allowed us to hire a bunch of gear, bass amp, guitar amp. And, Paul McKershaw was he just took it to the next level. A week later, we came back to Sydney and he mixed it. And then there was 2 songs, Vinegar Stroke and Lift, that were mixed by Ulrich Wilde.
Oh, that's cool, man. So US producer Ulrich Wilde, who in the 90s engineered or mixed albums like Adrenaline and Around the Fur, Pantera's The Great Southern Trendkill, Science by Incubus, actually mixed the 2 singles from Society Anxiety. I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. I believe a year before he worked with you guys, he produced an EP for Grinspoon, Pushing Buttons, and that featured an epic track called Black Friday.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. From here, Ulrich played a pretty big part in the nu metal trajectory, producing important and genre-bending albums like Powerman 5000's Platinum, Tonight the Stars Revolt, all the early Static X and Taproot releases, mixing Slipknot's single for Wait and Bleed, and I'm just checking it out now. He worked with some other Australian bands too, producing again with Grinspoon in 2002 for New Detention, and that's the album with Chemical Heart, 28 Days, Extremist Makeover, and he mixed Test Eagles Non Comprehendus. Yeah, so a really cool back catalogue of stuff. Yeah, I'm kind of addicted to Wikipedia rabbit holes and linking things.
Rabbit holes.
That Test Eagles connection is a nice one though.
If we're gonna go any further, we're gonna discuss it. Or you can go alone.
Yeah, describe to me what it was like then, hearing those mixes back for the first time.
I think I was just so nervous about the music coming out and whether it'd be good or not that I was just really hypercritical. Anything I heard straight away, I didn't really like it, to be honest. And I'd kind of freak out and I'd be like, this sucks, it's not good. And I think I've always had like a bit of a self-destructive side. But then playing it for friends and family members, and they'd be like, nah, this is good, Luke, this is good. And I'd be like, really? You think? And then I'd kind of come around and calm down and be like, oh yeah, it does actually sound pretty good, doesn't it? I mean, Paul and Ehrlich Wild, they just did a phenomenal job with the mixes, and he was also very good with samples and different sounds and things.
You are listening to Porcelain Buddha Demo. Porcelain Buddha, Society Anxiety.
Double vision tripping on my words, can't shake it out, face to the floor. Undisguised things that I never seen before. I go down, yeah. Ha! To break it down.
I mean, that's one of those things, right? If we're here talking specifically about creatives, it's easy to pick your stuff apart and only hear or see the things you wish you could change. And often you mainly focus on just that, all the perceived flaws.
Exactly.
But over 20 years later, the EP stands the test of time and speaks for itself. And upon its release in '99, receiving a lot of acclaim, peaking at number 2 on the ARIA singles chart, and creating quite the buzz for the band, and a quick forming, extremely dedicated fan base. It's a huge debut, man.
Oh man, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
With the release of Society Anxiety, how was it for you to now find yourself performing constantly in front of audiences around Australia, playing festivals, shooting music videos, press, promo?
Contorted, distorted, simmer through me. We're living in the land of hypocrisy. Nowhere to run, no place to hide. My heart's got face out, my black and darker side. Hide my darker side. Freezing, shaking.
I mean, I had posters of you guys up around my bedroom walls and band pictures in my school diary. I remember no matter what party I went to, what high school I went to, someone knew Sunk Loto. And you were...
Teen heartthrobs for the girls.
You get licking.
What was all that like for you when only just before all of this you were still attending high school and, of course, like the rest of us, dealing with being a teenager and circumventing through that?
It was weird, man. Like, I remember I ended up going to a new school because, you know, I had my head in the clouds about being a musician and I wasn't really focused on doing schoolwork. And in hindsight, I wish I hadn't done that. But when you're young, you just think, you know, everything's going to work out. I still felt like everything was just the same, even though all this stuff was happening and people were getting into the band and our songs were being played on Channel V and the radio and things like that. I just still felt like the same person.
Double vision tripping out my words, can't shake it out, face to the floor. Undisguised things that I never seen before. I go down, yeah.
I remember I was like in home economics class. This is really funny, but Sean wasn't going to this school. Sean was still going to our old school and I was going to a new school because I just wanted to finish my year 10 high schooling. I was sitting next to this girl, Kelly, and I looked at her book, dude, and her whole front cover was just Sean's face cut out probably like 10 different times. Her whole book, everything was covered in Sean's face, man, with the contact over the top. And she was like, I love Sean, written all over her books and stuff.
No way.
That's when I realized, like, whoa, I had no idea what was going on, man. Unless I went and played a gig or something, I was totally oblivious to the influence perhaps that we were having on people. I was just still in my little bubble. But when I saw Kelly's book and Sean's face, like, all over her book, I was like, wow, people really love our band. And it was a good feeling, you know. I even used to do it when I went to school. Like, I'd get maybe my favorite band or something and I'd cut it out of the magazine and I'd put it on my book, and then I'd get like clear contact pasted over the top. Do you remember when you used to do that sort of thing?
Yeah, dude, I loved doing that too.
On mine, I had like a picture of Deftones or something playing live.
As I mentioned earlier, you guys were the actual reason I started a band. And it's funny because I don't even really remember if before you came along, if it was a dream of mine or I saw the music video for Lift play on Rage and immediately thought,
love Rage.
I want to do that. And during the year 2000, I was seeing Loto live quite a lot, and this continued on for years. And one particular festival, on the eve actually of you guys releasing your debut album, Big Picture Lies, you headlined Spontaneity Festival in Cleveland in the Redland Bay area.
I remember that.
In layman's terms, that's where I grew up, so it was really exciting because Loto were headlining my area. And that whole concert is up on YouTube. I'll link that in the video description, and it will also be in this episode's YouTube playlist. But Fake's first actual gig that wasn't a house party was opening one of the tents at this festival, and I remember thinking,
way, dude.
Holy shit, man. I'm playing at the same festival as Loto. I was 15 too, and I thought, if this is my only show, I will die a happy man, because I was on the same bill as Loto.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate it a lot.
Really, you guys had such a dedicated fan base. The shows were always killer, the energy in the pit, and the mass connection of people just vibing the music. The Spontaneity video, and that's a great example of the crowd, along with the Big Day Out videos, stuff like that. It's all on YouTube. But what was it like to feed off that live energy?
Yeah, it's just wonderful. I've always loved playing music. We're all just fans of music, you know what I mean? It's just like a family kind of thing, you know, of people that are enjoying the same music. We're probably all very like-minded people, do you know what I mean? All hung out, we'd probably all enjoy the same kind of music. So yeah, of course, it's wonderful, man. I mean, I think every musician, they may not admit it openly, but I mean, really, most people who are in bands and stuff want to be like playing to huge audiences and be really popular. And so it was a dream come true. Whether we're playing in front of a small crowd or a large crowd, I was always extremely grateful, man, to be getting to do what I love and actually having an audience who are enjoying it too.
During the EP cycle, how did you guys, as a band, as friends, stick together while going through so many new experiences and uncharted territory?
I saw an interview with Nirvana. Kurt Cobain said about being passive-aggressive. Like, we never had really massive fights. We were lucky. If anyone ever upset me anyway, I was always just really passive-aggressive, and then after a couple of hours, it would blow over, you know what I mean? For the most part, we were having so much fun and we would just joke a lot, laugh a lot. I think we would surround ourselves with people that just like joked a lot, you know, like our crew or our friends, family members, because if you're getting to do what you love to do and you're not having a good time, I mean, there's definitely something there that you need to change what you're doing. Mm-hmm. The only time that it was difficult, like being on tour or something like that, was if I was missing a friend or girlfriend or I was tired. But for me, it was just all very exciting to be traveling, to be playing shows, to be meeting new people, getting the opportunity to play with other bands that I love. For me, it was mostly just all fun. Jason, Dane and Sean, to me, they're the greatest musicians out there. There was no other musicians that I would love to be in a band with more than those three guys. For me, it was a total honor to be playing in a band with Jason, Dane and Sean, because I just thought, and I still do think they're the greatest. Like, obviously I'm biased because I was in a band with them, but it was just so special. What's not to love? Looking back, we did a pretty good job. For a bunch of young kids, we did okay, and we had the potential to do a lot more. I hope that answers the question. Sorry, getting a bit sentimental.
Oh, I can only imagine that there's probably quite a lot to get sentimental about. There's so much history and we're only really scratching the surface, talking about the first few years of the band and one release. Looking back, 20 years later, Society Anxiety, where does it sit with you now and what does it mean to you both personally and creatively?
Oh man, I hadn't listened to any of our stuff for probably I don't know, a long time, probably 10 years or something like that. I had a friend who I was jamming with, and when we would jam, we would set up our laptops or whatever, and we would take turns picking songs and listening to songs and things. And he asked if he could put a Loto song on, and he put one of the songs from the EP on. That's when it kind of struck me. I was like, wow, this is actually not bad. I'm not hating this. I'm not bad at this. This is pretty cool, you know, like for the fact that we were just young and had no idea what we were doing, really. I was pretty impressed with it, to be honest. You know, I then went back and kind of listened to it because I didn't even have a copy of it, man. Luckily, someone had uploaded it onto YouTube or something. Now I own it. I went back and bought all the albums off iTunes.
Oh, dude.
It's a bit embarrassing, but it's always meant a lot to me, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, I'm super proud and honored to have been in Loto. And then I explored the other albums that we did. I've forgiven myself, as some people say. Like we were talking about before, when you're making something, you're so critical of it. So it was good to actually go back without negativity or critical cynicism towards it and just listen to it with fresh ears.
And so with those fresh ears, of the 5 songs from Society Anxiety, either back then or now, what would you call out as your favorite track and why?
I love all the songs on that EP, but I'd have to say Lift. When we wrote that song, it was one of the best days that we ever had as a band. It was one of those songs that just comes really easy. Jason had a few riffs, I had a few riffs, Sean had a few riffs, and it was literally written in like half an hour. And when we were jamming it, we were mucking around, having so much fun, and the positivity behind it, like lifting your head up and don't give up, don't beat yourself up so bad, just lift yourself up and keep going, keep fighting, keep trying. And I love the chorus. Yes. Yeah, Jason's vocal, I love it, man, because when we jam, Jason wouldn't write the vocals there. We'd just write the music, and then later he would go work on his vocals. I remember when we were recording that song for our EP that our parents funded for us before we got signed, he did his vocals for that song, and then I remember coming in, having a listen because he wanted to show us. It just blew me away, man. Blew my hair back.
It's a tough call to pick a favourite from the EP.
What would be your favourite?
Well, the most obvious answer for me would have to be Lift. There are so many great moments in that song, as you've already talked about. Yeah, the chorus is just perfect. It feels so big and anthemic, and for me is a staple in why I love your music so much. There's just something in the DNA of that moment that really triggers. The opening riff is iconic. Jason screaming over the breakdown at the end. I love it.
Definitely, man.
And then over the years, I would have to say Submission.
Yes, me too. There's a cello part in Submission. Paul McKercher, he actually played that cello part. Yeah, I think it's one of the best parts of the whole song.
Definitely. A lot of fans may not know you've actually returned to music and have started a new band with none other than Sunk Loto bassist Sean. So tell us something more about that and what it's like playing music after all these years.
Yes, exactly. So we've started a new band. It's called Jails and Churches. You can check out some of our music on my YouTube channel. It's a project that we started work on about 10 years ago and we didn't finish it off. We've since reconnected, and next year we're going to actually start putting together the album that we didn't finish. We've got John from Carnival, who's a bass player from Carnival. He's going to be involved in the band as well. A guitar player from the Gold Coast called Jared McCauley, who used to play in a band called Vaudeville. Yeah, I'm really excited about it, man. I'm really looking forward to it. It's amazing. It's really amazing because I consider Sean to be like the best bass player in the world and just one of the best people I've ever met in my life. It's a wonderful opportunity, man, especially when you have that chemistry with somebody. It's just a really good feeling. And, you know, with all the wisdom as well of life, you can really appreciate things a little more, you know, as you get older. You understand a little more how unique and special those things are when you're older and you've lived a bit longer, and you kind of go, wow, man, like that actually was a very rare, special blessing. I'm really, really happy with it. I'm really proud of what we did and what we achieved, and just really enjoy music and everything else that comes with that, you know, whether it be fame, success, money, that's all a luxury. The most important thing is just writing the best music that we possibly can, because most of the time what I make isn't good, but every once in a while it might pass and be something that people will enjoy and that I'll enjoy. The hope is that if I enjoy it, my friends and family members enjoy it, that other people will enjoy it too. And being able to play music is a gift, man. I'm very, very grateful that I had the right friends and family members and influences and things in my life, and I was able to have a guitar, be given a guitar, and to be back with Sean and writing music with Sean, it's a real gift, a real blessing. And hopefully too, like in the future, Sunk Loto will also do more. We've had a few times where we've been close to reuniting. I think it just comes down to everyone being in the right place at the right time and agreeing to do it, because I think it's got to be the original members. I think that's where the magic is, man. You know, with me, Sean, Jason and Dane, the four of us, and we haven't been able to get that lineup back together yet. So hopefully that will happen. Man. I would definitely like to do more with Sunk Loto, you know, one day.
Dude. That's music to our ears, and something fans have all been hoping for since the band's last show at the Hard Rock Cafe all the way back in 2007. One of my mates and I have a deal that if Sunk Loto play a reunion show in Australia, we're just going to do it. We're going to grab plane tickets and head over from Europe, no matter what, when, just to go to that show. So yeah, I'm sure that's on the wish list for a lot of us fans. But no pressure. But in the meantime, we can of course stay up to date with what you and Sean are doing with Jails and Churches over at your YouTube page. I'll definitely put a link to all that, all the links necessary in the description of this episode.
Love it. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Hopefully this has been okay. You know, I hope it hasn't been too boring or my stories aren't too long-winded. I'm confident in your abilities, David.
There's so much history to cover, so hopefully, I don't know, we can make this a regular thing.
Yeah, I'd love to. I heard your other podcasts and they sound great, so we can definitely do like a big picture lives and a Between Birth and Death one too. I'm down for that.
Yeah, definitely. For me, this was the perfect way to celebrate 1 year of the podcast, so thank you.
The pleasure's all mine, man, and thank you. Like, seriously, man. Really, thank you.
Patrons over at the Life Is Peachy Podcast Patreon. You legends really, really make a difference, and I just can't thank you enough. It means so much to me, honestly. I'm not going to plug all the usual things right now. All I want to say is thank you for listening, thank you for the support, and helping the podcast by just being you. There will be 2 more episodes to see out 2021, and until then, thank you for your time and energy and celebrating 1 year with me. And until we do it all again for episode 13.
See you at the party, Richter!
Bye! This episode was written, edited, and produced by myself, recorded from the comfort of my own home.
DIY style.
With each guest calling in from wherever they happen to be around the world at that particular time. The Life Is Peachy theme song is an original tune for this podcast, written by Tim Richardson. All music by the artist featured in this episode is used with permission. Further details can be found in the description of the specific episode.
All artwork is original and illustrated for the Life Is Peachy podcast by Chris Lisa Liefting.